You're listening to WKCR-FM New York and WKCR-HD1. We're joined today in studio by Carrie Frey, violist for the Chartreuse String Trio, and Erika Floreska, Executive Director of Bloomingdale School of Music. We'll be talking today about By the Water, a free concert presented by Bloomingdale School of Music and featuring Chartreuse. The concert will be tomorrow, Friday, January 12th at 7 p.m. at the David Greer Recital Hall at 323 West 108th Street. Once again, admission is free. Thanks so much for being here, Erika and Carrie.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So to start, you're both involved with Bloomingdale School of Music. Erika, you're the executive director, as we said, and then Carrie, you're a faculty member, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
And so can you talk a bit about BSM's initial involvement in organizing this upcoming concert?
Sure. We feature a free concert series curated by our faculty. Throughout the year, about 26 concerts, most Friday nights. So this concert is part of that series. And we have mini-series within that. So this is part of our Women Composers series. We really wanted to shine a light on the great work of women composers, and we had faculty who responded to that call. So this is one that Carrie really put together with her group, the pieces, the repertoire, and it's a service we offer the community by having all these free concerts. So we hope our neighbors and friends will come out.
Great. So, Carrie, you're the violist for Chartreuse. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement and Chartreuse's involvement with this concert?
Right. Well, ever since I joined the faculty at Bloomingdale, I knew that they had this cool concert series. And this is my second year on faculty, and I thought that it would be great to have us come play. Because when my students ask what I do outside of teaching, I'm always like, yeah, I have this trio. It's the best thing ever. So I wanted us to be able to share that with the studio and the school. And the Women Composers theme was perfect for us because we commission a lot of our friends and people we admire, and a few of those happen to be women, in fact, quite a few of them. So this will be the New York premiere of one of the pieces. We're playing Leah Asher's piece called Let Me Know What You Find, and we're also playing one of our old favorites, Kaya Sariaho's Cloud Trio, which is one of the first pieces we ever played as a trio. And the other one, let's see, Bethany Young, that's another commission, and she's a Columbia student, but we met her at Oberlin. So the water theme came out of the Sariaho piece is about clouds, various types of weather, and since that was one of our early pieces as a group, we were learning it at a residency on a lake in New Hampshire. So we're sitting by this beautiful water thinking, water is pretty important. And we had all these pieces about water already because many composers have been inspired by it. It's everywhere. It's hard not to be inspired by it. So we commissioned a bunch of pieces about water, and Bethany's piece is one of those. So the next year, we took her to the same residency in New Hampshire, sat by a lake. Most people write beautiful music. Oh, water, just so inspiring, gorgeous clouds, nature. And Bethany writes a piece about drowning. So...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's
Different
nice to have, it's nice to have that contrast. So, water's gorgeous, but it's also really dangerous, and if you don't have it, or if you have too much of it, you might die. I'll leave that there for now.
Okay, I'll do what I can with
Speaking of water being dangerous, that first pipe. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more, Erika, about the Women's Composer series that you have at BSM and some of the other, how this concert fits in with that series?
Sure. This is the second of the concerts we had this fall. We had one of our other faculty members, Jocelyn Medina, who is a jazz singer and composer, and she did a concert, Roots and Branches, Jazz Explorations and World Music, that was really exciting, collaborating with other faculty members and playing all original tunes. Then we have this concert by Chartreuse, and the real theme about water and many women composers. And then on March 9th, we're also going to have a concert dedicated to the music of Rebecca Clark with one of our pianists and viola and violin faculty. So each one takes a different stab at sort of women composers, and I think one of the things about the whole series is it really shows diversity in this world. It's not any specific time period or living or not living, and our faculty really came up with these ideas to play music they love for free to our audiences.
Carrie, can you talk a little bit about when you were initially approached to come up with all the music for this concert, can you talk about how, besides just bringing in your friends, how you approached the idea of specifically performing works by women composers?
Mm-hmm. So women composers are kind of like viola composers. there's not a lot before 1900, but after that it gets really good. So when you're looking for older music for string trio, my group's a string trio, we've been searching through archives. You know, we went to the Free Library in Philadelphia, just flipped through everything they have in their card catalog, and we pull anything we find by a woman because, you know, people have this thing, oh, we don't program very many women because we program music that we like that's really at a high level. And it's like, well, you program bad music by men, so why not program bad music by women too? So anything we find, we read through, we see if we like it. And we had this Rebecca Clark duo for violin or viola and cello. Rebecca Clark was a violist, so a lot of her music involves viola. And I thought, why not put that on there? It's a contrast to the rest of the music because most of what we play is contemporary, since there's not that much music written by women in the past because of societal oppression. You know, you can't have music lessons, you need to get married. So we play what we can from that era, but most of it we're commissioning ourselves. And a lot of the current season, you know, we have the new piece by Bethany, the new piece by Leah, and next year we're commissioning Sabrina Schroeder for a new piece. So we're trying to make the trio repertoire what we want it to be, which means commissioning the women that we admire, whose music we love.
So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the pieces you'll be performing tomorrow, but let's go ahead and listen to one of them. Should we start out with the Sargasso piece?
Sure, it's
Great.
a little more uplifting.
So it's entitled Cloud Trio, correct?
Yes,
And
written in 2009, and she was inspired by the French Alps and the clouds around there, so you can think about that while you listen.
So this is Cloud Trio, composed by Carrie and performed live by Chartreuse at Art Share in Los Angeles. You just heard Cloud Trio, composed by Kaya Sariaho and performed live by Chartreuse String Trio at Art Share in Los Angeles. Once again, we're joined today in studio by Carrie Frey, violist for Chartreuse, and Erika Floreska, Executive Director of Bloomingdale School of Music, and we're talking about By the Water, a free concert presented by BSM and featuring Chartreuse. And the concert will be tomorrow, Friday, January 12th at 7 p.m. at the David Greer Recital Hall at 323 West 108th Street. And once again, admission is free, so no excuse to miss it. And so this concert is in the series that BSM has of women composers. We were talking a little off mic about this, but can you talk a little more about this series and the choice to only present works by women composers?
Sure. One of the things that we found in programming, that if you don't define women or give them a chance in this way or promote it proactively, people often just default to what you know or what's familiar. And when that happens in the music world, it's often male composers, because that's what we know, that's what we've been trained on, that's what's been programmed on concerts all over the world. So we know that if you actually do some work and do some research, just as Carrie was describing, going through, there are plenty of women composers, whether they're writing now or even in the past. You do the extra work, and then we can put them on and we can hear them and decide, wow, this is some great music, or maybe we don't like this music so much. But we have to be proactive about representation and about giving the opportunity to hear more diverse styles of composing, diverse genders from different people. And the way to do that is to proactively program it that way. So we were excited to do this, and that a number, 3 different faculty, which we wanted 3 concert series, all responded to that call.
Is that something that's in the works for BSM's programming in general?
Yeah, we like doing these small ones, whether it stays as women composers or new music, or we have a Bernstein series this year in honor of the celebration. We like having these mini series because it sort of helps. And a jazz series. It helps people. We want, we're a service. These concerts are a service to our neighbors and to our community, because we offer them for free, and we like people to come and see a theme and a through line while experiencing the great diversity that our faculty bring to the concert stage.
Mm-hmm. And in my trios programming in general, we don't usually do concerts where we say, this is all women, but just quietly, because we want this to be normal. We try to program at least half pieces by women on every concert and not say anything, just be like, yeah, that's how it is. That's how it should be. Mm-hmm. And I think
that's what we wanted.
Yeah, so if it gradually creeps in, and then that's just how the world works, that's how we would like it to be. But it's also good to put a spotlight on it.
Yeah, in an ideal world.
Because, when people program music where it's all men in a concert, no one says, this is a program of all men's music.
Yeah, you want
so
it
it's
to
just
be
nice to point that out.
Integrated, yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing with people of color, composers of color, or other people that just aren't in that world. We want it to be great music, and it can come from all different composers. But until that happens, this is a part of the way to be more conscious about it, because sometimes subconsciously we just don't even think about it. So by thinking about it, we start to make that change.
Right. I was going to call out my friend and colleague Rob Deemer. He's a composer, and he's been putting a lot of work into searching every internet database and crowdsourcing from all his friends, and he has a database now of about probably a few thousand female composers, all sourced online. And he's got it listed. You can find out what kinds of compositions they've written, what kind of music they write, where they are, whether they're dead or alive, whether you can contact them, who their publisher is. So everything you would need to program someone you can find in this database. So from now on, there's no excuse. Everybody can find women to program.
So let's go ahead and talk about the pieces that specifically will be performed tomorrow. So we just heard the Sariaho piece. Can you talk a little bit about the specific performance that we heard?
Okay, so that was when we were out at Art Share in LA. We were invited there by our friend Kurt Isaacson, whose piece we were premiering for the West Coast. And we played the Sariaho, all the time. It's one of our favorite pieces. But that was probably one of our favorite performances of it. We played in the dark, and I think that's a really special way to listen. So when you just have the stand lights, if you watch the video on our YouTube channel, you can see that pretty much all you can see of us is our scrolls. So you're watching the instruments go up and down, and it's almost like waves, which I think fits the piece really nicely. We've done that for a couple other sort of water-themed pieces as well. There's one we commissioned by a Columbia composer, David Byrd, and it's about horseshoe crabs. And we all sit in a circle in the dark, and you can only see us by our stand lights. So then the physicality of the performance is really heightened because people are looking for what little they can see. Nobody's just sitting in the dark with their eyes closed. So I think that's an interesting way to perform at any time.
And so this piece was the first piece you chose for this upcoming concert, correct?
It was. Yeah, that was the centerpiece. When I think of women composers, this is an easy one to go to because we know it so well. And I sort of built the program around that. So the Pauline Oliveros piece has elements of water because it's a poem, basically. It's all improvised, and we're reading lines in a poem, and some of those are standing naked in the moonlight, a sip of water at midnight, or things like that, where it's really evocative and very specific, and quite a few of those are water-themed. So hers went in there, and then Leah's piece isn't so much explicitly water-themed, but it's a graphic score. And when you look at it, it's like a watercolor, and you can see thumbprints, and it's all very washy and very airy. So you can kind of hear the elements in it. It's not explicitly water, but if you think hard, there might be some water somewhere in your head.
That sounds very cool. Will you show the score?
I will,
tomorrow night,
definitely.
so
When we
that?
played it in the past, we've actually projected the score. We played it at the Arts Club in Chicago, which is an older demographic, so we wanted to make it really clear for them. And I think it's interesting to follow along because since it's a graphic score, you're not reading notation. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, people won't be able to follow it. They can't read notes. It's just the sounds are what they look like. I think
very cool.
Do you find that influences how the audience reacts to this kind of a thing?
It is, because sometimes, the sounds that we think of right away when we see that, a lot of them we were in agreement because we've played together for so long that we all kind of have this group think. And people would say, oh, that's not what I thought that would sound like. Or they would agree with us. And I think that was really interesting because the other thing about it is when you see notes on a page, it's a really specific thing. It's like, play that thing that I want you to play. But when it's a graphic score, the composer might have something in mind and we might come up with something completely different. So I think what we ended up with is something in between what Leah would have played and what we thought of. And we had to stretch ourselves because you see these symbols on the page and you have to come up with a new sound for it. So it's not something we would have just improvised on our own completely, and it's not something that Leah would have written if she were writing really explicit music with really specific notation. So it's an interesting in-between place of creation.
And so we've talked about the Sarajevo piece as well as Leah Asher's piece and Pauline Oliveros. And then what else in the concert is Rebecca Clark's piece and
Right.
Bethany Young's trio piece that you commissioned.
Right, so the Rebecca Clark piece is the most traditional of the pieces that we're playing. It's really gorgeous, and it starts with a lullaby, very calming, but also very difficult, because you remember that it's a violin part for viola. And then the second movement is called a grotesque, so it's faster and upbeat and really distinctly English. So the reason that this is on a water program, besides the fact that it's also a women composers program, is that when I think of water music, I think of harmonics. There's that glitter on the top of the water. And in the grotesque, it ends with this gorgeously delicate, lacy harmonic section in the viola and the cello. And that's where the water part of it is for me. So then Bethany's piece. As I mentioned, we commissioned it in 2014. And we brought her with us to a residency to hang out by a lake. It was great because we were rehearsing in a cabin, and she was writing music in the front of the cabin. So whenever she had an idea that she wanted to try out, she would come running in and say, hey, can you guys play this as fast as possible? We're like, okay, sure, that sounds like this. And she goes, oh, okay. And then she goes back out front and keeps writing. And she wanted the piece to be it's watery in several ways. It has text that refers to water. This is the poem about, this is where they sink.